Imagine two men driving through quiet Californian suburbs in a silver van. On the outside, it looks like a work vehicle, but inside it's a mobile chamber of horror, stocked with hammers, pliers, ice picks, and tape recorders. What Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris did to 5 teenage girls in 1979 was so cruel, even seasoned detectives broke down. One officer described it as the most disturbing case he had ever seen, and he wasn't exaggerating. You're watching the Grim Crim Vault, where we uncover the darkest true crimes. It began in prison. Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris first met in 1977, inside the California men's colony in San Luis Obispo. They had two things in common: a long history of sexual violence and a hatred of women. They weren't friends at first, but over time they started talking, planning, and comparing notes. By the time they were released, just months apart, they had already agreed to do something unspeakable. They would stalk, abduct, torture, and kill teenage girls. And they'd record it all. They called it their fun weekends, the Van of Death. Bittaker bought a silver 1977 GMC cargo van with no windows in the back. He nicknamed it Murder Mac. From February to June 1979, the pair rehearsed their plan. They picked up hitchhikers, drove aimlessly around Southern California, and practiced restraining women without killing them. But by the summer, they were ready to escalate. Victim number 1, Lucinda Schaefer. On June 24th, 16-year-old Lucinda Schaefer was walking home from a church meeting in Redondo Beach. Bittaker and Norris spotted her and followed. They offered her a ride. She refused, so they drove ahead, parked, and waited. As Lucinda passed the van, Norris grabbed her and dragged her inside. Back at the San Gabriel Mountains, they took turns raping her. When they were done, they debated how to kill her. Eventually, they decided to strangle her with a coat hanger, tightened with pliers. They dumped her body off a cliff. Victim number 2, Andrea Hall. Just 2 weeks later, on July 8th, 18-year-old Andrea Hall disappeared while hitchhiking. This time, Bittaker and Norris used deception. One of them posed as a photographer and convinced her to step into the van. Inside, she was gagged, tied up, and repeatedly raped while Bittaker took Polaroids of her. Norris claims Bittaker forced Andrea to pose for them while begging for her life. She was killed the same way as Lucinda, strangled with a coat hanger. Her body was never recovered. Victim number 3 and 4, Jackie Gilliam and Leah Lamp. On September 3rd, the pair abducted 2 girls from a bus stop in Hermosa Beach, 13-year-old Leah Lamp and 15-year-old Jackie Gilliam. These were the only 2 victims kept alive for more than 24 hours. They were lured into the van with the promise of a ride to a party. Once inside, they were held captive in the mountains for nearly 2 days. What they endured was beyond comprehension. They were repeatedly assaulted, tied up, and beaten with a sledgehammer. Bittaker recorded audio of the abuse, directing Norris like a twisted filmmaker. At one point, Bittaker used an ice pick to puncture one of the girl's ears, then twisted it. He laughed while she screamed. That audio would later become the most horrifying piece of evidence investigators had ever heard. So disturbing that seasoned detectives reportedly broke down listening to it. The full recording was never made public. When the pair were finished, they killed the girls and threw their bodies into a canyon. Their remains wouldn't be recovered until months later. Victim number 5, Shirley Lynette Ledford. October 31st, 1979, Halloween night. 16-year-old Shirley Ledford had just finished her shift at a restaurant in the San Fernando Valley. She accepted a ride from the 2 men as she tried to get home. This time, the brutality escalated. For over 2 hours, Bittaker and Norris tortured her inside the van. Pliers were used on her face and body. She was sexually assaulted, struck repeatedly, and made to scream. All of it captured on tape. But unlike the other victims, they didn't hide her body. Shirley's corpse was dumped on a random front lawn in Sunland the next morning. Her injuries were so severe that even experienced pathologists were shaken. It was the final killing, and the one that would bring the entire nightmare crashing down. How they got caught. Just weeks later, Norris made a fatal mistake. He casually bragged about the killings to an old friend, Joe Jackson, a former cellmate and recovering drug user. Jackson went straight to police. At first, the LAPD didn't believe the story, but as they dug deeper, things began to line up. Missing persons, recovered remains, and then the van. Inside the silver GMC, detectives found physical evidence linking the pair to multiple victims: bloodstains, strands of hair, and most damning of all, Polaroids. But nothing compared to what was on the cassette tape. The trial, horror in the courtroom. Norris turned on Bittaker in exchange for a life sentence. He confessed in detail and helped investigators locate the remains of several victims. Bittaker was defiant. He showed no emotion and denied the murders, claiming the tape was just a role-play fantasy. But the evidence was overwhelming. At trial, prosecutors played a 17-minute portion of the tape for the jury. One female juror ran out of the courtroom. Another became physically ill. Reporters described it as hell recorded. Bittaker was convicted on all counts and sentenced to death in 1981. He remained on death row for decades, filing appeals and maintaining his innocence. He died in prison in 2019. Norris died of natural causes in 2020. The legacy of sadism. The Toolbox Killers aren't remembered just for what they did, but how much they enjoyed it. They were methodical. They planned the torture, filmed it, and relished in the power. Investigators called them the most sadistic murderers in California history. The tape, sealed permanently from public release, is still used in FBI training. Only a handful of people have ever heard it in full. Many wish they hadn't. If you're interested in more true crime stories like this one, watch our video on the 3 Guys 1 Hammer case. The video is live on the channel and will leave you horrified.